Hello and welcome. We have a full house today. This is pretty impressive. We've got Rich, Kat, Simon, and our very special guest, Vanessa. Vanessa, I have you down as you are international keynote speaker, best-selling author, coach. It sounds like you've got a full card there of what you have coming through. I'm just bear in mind, right, if just say we might have some issues with people viewing us on LinkedIn, but let's see if we can get that sorted out in the meantime. If you have any questions during this, please feel free to drop them in the comments. Of course, if you're watching this as a recording, that probably won't work, but we might go back and have a look and see what we find. If you are watching the recording, hello in the future. I hope things are better with the pandemic. And please don't forget to like and share. So without further ado, let's start some introductions. Let's have a quick introduction from the regular team here. Cass, hello. How are you this week?
I'm very good. Just to introduce me, I'm Kat Collier. I head up Flare Insight, and we help firms navigate their markets, understand their clients and their target service lines and sectors.
That sounds great. Thank you very much.
And
let's go over to the Iron Man himself, Mr. Rich Dibbins. Hello, Rich. How are you this week?
Very, very well. I have a very quiet Noah sleeping downstairs, which is music to my ears. Sorry, 4-month-old baby, for anybody who doesn't know. Yes, my name's Rich. I'm the creator of Staxton Digital, and I basically help law firms and providers within the legal sector with their basically social media and digital marketing, basically making a presence and getting noticed through social media.
Fabulous. Any notable social media activities you've seen this week?
This week, I would probably have to say it's the Conveyancing Association. Everybody's just gone crazy with that, as well as Leah Turner's LinkedIn Christmas party. Lots of photos making the rounds on that. So those are probably the most noticeable ones at the moment. I'm just waiting for all the Christmas jumper posts to come out next.
Yes.
I think next Friday we should have Christmas jumpers on.
Brilliant idea.
Maybe Simon has a unicorn Christmas jumper.
Even better idea. Why don't we send each other a Christmas jumper?
Say again.
Send each other a Christmas jumper.
Send each other. Well, that's a good shout. Yeah.
Can I not be the one who gets Simon's recommendation? Last but not least, when it comes to the introductions, the Digital 100 himself, the ever happy Simon Marshall. Hello, Simon. How are you this week? And how many Christmas jumpers do you have?
Hi, I'm Simon Marshall from TBD Marketing, and I sound like a confessional at the beginning of an AA meeting. I've got 7 Christmas jumpers. Something like that. Anyway, in fact, I've kept some of my dad's. You know, just of all the things that he left behind, I thought I'll hang on to the Christmas jumpers. Quite a nice memory to have with them. So yeah, maybe about 7 in total. We've had a busy week. Too many 5 a.m. starts over this week. So yeah, it's been a bit busy, but enjoying it and looking forward to the upcoming Christmas holidays, definitely.
That sounds good. That sounds good. Oh, and before I forget, hello, I'm David. I do some digital marketing, I do some strategy, I do some audits, and I do migration projects with professional services firms and B2B firms mostly. Short and sweet from my side. So now we're on to our special guest, Vanessa. Great to have you joining us this week. Would you like to give everyone a quick introduction to who you are?
Yes, I'm Vanessa Ugatti, the True Worth expert, and I help law firms and other professionals get paid their true worth, working with the right clients and creating a healthier work-life balance.
I like the sound of that. Always nice to be paid your true worth.
Absolutely, it's a must.
Sounds like the dream, doesn't it? Really, that's what that's the allure of having Vanessa on, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to live that life, really, if that's what your promise is?
Absolutely.
Vanessa, tell us about the origin story. How did you come to kind of, setting up your business? What was the stimulus behind kind of setting up that niche?
So I was already working with and coaching professionals, helping them overcome the mental barriers that get in the way. You know, we've all got them, haven't we? Limiting beliefs. And I just had this niggle in the back of my mind saying there was something else, but I didn't know what it was. So I was on the computer one day looking for inspiration, and I stumbled across a marketing program specifically for coaches that said you've got to have a niche. Now, I'd heard about niching, but I had no idea what mine was or indeed how to do it. So after lots of procrastination, I signed up for the program. And on the first workshop, they asked us to write down all our interests in anything that we were interested in, from something small to something enormous. And I scribbled down a load of answers. And this subject of value or charging your worth appeared on the piece of paper. And I had no idea how it had got there. I mean, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? But that's the truth of the matter. So the person who was facilitating the workshop came over and she had a look at my answers. And she looked at that and she said, that is marketable. And I said, well, you're the expert. So I'm going to take a leap of faith. And that's what I did. I'm going to grab hold of this thing. At the time, I knew nothing about it. I had no idea how it was there. And I'm going out networking. You know, the days when we had real networking, you know, face to face, real stuff. And who did you always see a lot of in those events? Lawyers and accountants. So I literally asked them, you know, what is going on in terms of charging? What are your challenges around charging? And I found out quite quickly that undercharging, underestimating, discounting, and over-servicing clients was really commonplace problems amongst highly experienced professional lawyers and other professionals. But we're focusing on lawyers, so I'm going to stop saying that. I'm just going to say lawyers. So I thought, fantastic, tick, that was my first bit of evidence that I was on the right track. So then I looked at clients I'd already been working with in the past and currently, and I discovered that I'd already been helping some people with charging, because I was helping people with mindset. And obviously, if you're talking about mindset, you're talking about confidence and so on.
Yeah.
So if people were lacking confidence in one area, the charging thing was almost bound to come up, because let's face it, for a lot of people, charging is a very emotive subject and it brings up lots of fear. So that was the second bit of evidence. So I was literally just gathering evidence. And then fortunately, but rather painfully, I decided to shine the spotlight even on myself. And guess what I found? Well, I was the worst culprit of anybody, because I was totally, utterly clueless, embarrassed. I mean, and I've got the kind of skin type that always blushes easily. So for me, charging, we're talking about back in 2013, was incredibly painful. And I'm going to just tell you a very quick story about how I was in sales meetings all those years ago. So I'd have a prospect. I'd be asking them what their challenges were, what their problems were. And then I'd be trying to solve them all there and then, because I am a heart-led person, and heart-led people just want to help. And if they don't learn how to control themselves, they just want to help. So, and also I was clueless about sales. I didn't know anything about sales either. So I knew nothing about anything really, excepting that I could help people and wanted to help people. So then the meeting would be going on, and I'd be aware all the time of the fact that I was going to have to talk about money, and the thoughts were very negative and fear-based. And so it was a bit, you know, when you're networking again and you've got to do your 1 minute pitch and you know, it's going around the table, it's like creeping death, isn't it? Even if you're a speaker, which I am, doing that 1 minute pitch thing was always a bit nerve-wracking. And I think everybody finds that. So it was like that. I was aware of the fact that I needed to speak about it, but I was so scared, I kept putting it off. So my meetings were just long and long and long. And eventually, when I did decide to share something, you know, what I was charging, it would be a paltry hourly rate. And then I'd carry on talking, because I was so scared of being rejected. So when I had that experience, it was like a light bulb moment, because I realized that clearly I had a problem, and that my subconscious mind knew I had a problem. And so that's why I had brought it forward, and that I needed to solve the problem for myself, because otherwise my life was going to be a total misery. And so although it was difficult and painful, at the same time, it was the best thing that could happen. And then the almost last bit to the story is that, you know, when you're in bed and you're half awake or half asleep, you know, and you feel quite drowsy, it's quite a nice feeling, isn't it? So that is when your conscious mind has gone to sleep, but your subconscious mind is still awake. And a formula appeared in my mind. And when I perceived this formula, somehow or another, I knew it was correct. And I also knew what it meant. So clearly the subconscious mind was working on this subject in the background because I was gathering this evidence, and it came up with a formula. And of course, a formula is a great thing for lawyers and accountants because they're formulaic type people, so it would appeal. And that formula was UV, understand your value, plus CV, communicate your value, plus CD, confident delivering fees, equals CW, charging what you're worth. And I thought, yeah, that makes complete and utter sense. So that was when I started then working on content and talking more to people and writing stuff. So, you know, 8 years later, that formula has developed into what I call now the True Worth methodology, because it's much greater than that original formula. But those three elements of understanding your value, communicating your value, and being confident delivering your fees are still contained within True Worth, but there's just more elements to it. Because as I started working with people and myself, I realized that there were additional things going on. So it isn't just about charging either, it's about getting paid. And I make the differentiation between charging somebody, this is what I charge, and actually getting the money in your bank, because that's a different kettle of fish.
Recovery is so important. I'm really interested that you know, that period of the day that your subconscious has been ticking over on something all the time. It's quite exhausting when it's thinking about those problems as well, can't it? Is solving this kind of True Worth, charging the True Worth, is that closely allied? I guess it is to business health, but also to personal health as well. Is that something, you know? So if people go through your program, do they end up healthier?
Well, yes, they can do, because if you think about it, it is exhausting. If people are not charging properly, it's because they're feeling fearful. Normally, it's a habitual behavior. And if they're feeling fearful, they're stressed. And if they're under stress, then their body's going to be affected by that. And if every time they have a conversation with a client, they go into fight or flight, where that's, you know, chucking out adrenaline in the body, that's not good for anybody, is it? And so, yes, when people are much more confident about charging and taking charge of their clients, they feel calmer. And so it's impacting positively, not just on physical health, but of course on emotional health as well. And I do make this, you know, when I'm talking to prospects and clients, I make this very clear, because if you're talking to a firm, it's not just about their bottom line, it's about the state of their lawyers, isn't it? And since more firms are actually taking more care, I think, these days of their lawyers and recognize the importance of doing that and the whole well-being thing, I think it's really important that it encompasses not just your financial well-being, but also your physical and mental. And I have a formula or a triangle which says create value for your clients, which of course is important, create value for your business, and look after yourself, and that's like an equilateral triangle. You've got to visualize that, if you can remember at school days, equilateral triangles. And of course that is balance, and so therefore actually everybody wins, because when somebody's looking after the health of their business and themselves, then they've actually got more to give to their clients, haven't they? So when somebody is not charging properly, they're running around like headless chickens, bending over backwards to help their clients morning, noon and night, and even weekends, too much, then it's impacting on not just their finances, but on themselves personally and emotionally, because there's a lot of resentment that creeps in, and negative energies, negative feelings can cause illness. So, yeah.
I was going to ask, maybe that's part of the answer, but I was going to ask what the biggest challenge is that lawyers face when it comes to charging their True Worth. Is it that fear that you're talking about there, or is it something else that you want?
I think it's definitely fear is going on. It's a lack of training in doing it. The focus is on looking after the clients. You know, they go to law school and they learn to be a lawyer. They don't go to law school and learn to be a business person. So they can be brilliant at doing law and rubbish at doing business, but they haven't had any teaching in that. So why would they be good? So it's a lack of knowledge, but it's also the fear. And the fear is, and I certainly know in the past, maybe younger lawyers, maybe they don't get the same training, but I had a coaching client about 3 years ago who was mature. Let's say he was mature, quite mature. And he said that he'd always been taught to go out hunting on the prairie. So there was this attitude of go and grab anything that you can get.
Yeah.
And, even if it's a scraggy bit of end rather than a juicy, plump young buck, you get anything that you can in. But you see, that's working on the basis of fear as well, and saying you've got to grab everything, because if you don't, you're not going to make enough money. So I think that fear has been instilled into lawyers in particular. Then I think there's the fear of getting complaints. There's the fear of not getting the business. I think they're riddled. I hope nobody's offended by me saying this, but I think they're riddled with fears, which I understand. But also as human beings, we are fearful because we're programmed to be fearful.
It's interesting. I've worked with a number of lawyers that have moved out of reasonably large firms out on their own, and I think every single one of them has seen some struggle. They're trained in what they do, but all of a sudden, especially many of them, they didn't have that support behind them that they had within the firm. And there was something of a snowball effect that came in from there. So all of a sudden, there's the doubt of, how am I marketing myself? How am I doing this business, as well as the bread and butter, the legal side? And on a few occasions, you could see how it would start to impact them down to quite a personal level as well.
And I think it's all, absolutely, David. And I think it's also about the fact that then if they're working for themselves, they're selling themselves, so it becomes more personal than if they're in a firm. I mean, there's different challenges for people being in a firm, because they don't necessarily feel confident with talking about their fees either, but at least they can hide behind the fact that it's the firm rather than them personally. When people are selling a service and it's their own business, it's very personal, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very personal.
The one thing that I find with law firms is when you ask them what their USP is, they say, we've got the best team, we've got the best customer service, we're the greatest law firm in the village, shall we say. So it's interesting to hear that some lawyers are not confident in their pricing, but they're confident in saying how great they are. But when they're then pitching to a client, the whole cost element, our fees are this. And I've known some law firms to do pitches and then almost instantly discount in the room because a client's gone, well, that's expensive. Oh, we'll knock 10% off or something like that. But before all that, they were, we're the best law firm. Look at our reviews. We've got the best team. We're in Legal 500, ranked #1, whatever it may be. But you're right. It's like that confident element just goes out of the room. And I think it does come down to, typical BDM training with them. Be confident. If you're confident in your service, be confident in what you're going to be pushing with, well, not pushing, but delivering in your price. And more often than not, if price is a sensitive issue, working with conveyancing firms as well. That was a huge thing around the STLT market, around the holiday. Law firms were driving down prices. And then some law firms went, you know what, we're going to go the other way. We're going to increase our prices. They'd done a lot better. They weren't having teams working, 12, 13 hours a day and weekends as well. But they were a lot more profitable. And they chose not to work with certain law firms because they were confident in increasing their price. I appreciate the market was saturated. But it's weird, we offer great service. We're confident to say that, but we're not confident to talk about our pricing.
Absolutely. But I see this all the time. It just doesn't make any sense. But as I always say, remember, I was one of these people. So I know this is true. People are complex, irrational, and emotional. I've said that for many years, and I've never had anybody say, what a load of rubbish, Vanessa. So it's true. We all are. And it's just about degree, isn't it? And so, yes. And I actually see it in people when I'm coaching people or even training people. I see the two sides of them. It's like the adult and the child, the adult and the child, the adult and the child. And so that bit that says, oh no, I can't charge that. The fear is that they're going to get rejected. It could be such a strong motivator. And that knee-jerk reaction, you know, of, oh yeah, we'll discount. And some people will lead with that. Oh, this is my fee, and I'm going to do it for you for so much, you know. And you just think, why?
And that's strange. It doesn't even achieve the effect it's trying to achieve, and that's what's so funny. Because I attended one of your sessions, and yeah, I think that I learned a lot from it when I attended that as well. In terms of one of the things that we talked about, certainly afterwards, you and I, is about collapsing what's going on there. So, you know, you offer your price, and then what that feedback is about the client saying, will you give us some discount? That's how they value the piece of work. But they're not the same thing going on. And the issue that's going on there is that the lawyer's collapsing, you know, what I'm offering is a price of what the client's willing to pay, and thinking it's going to be dealt with in the room. It doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, the client's allowed to say, this is how I value it, you know, and fine, okay, then just you can walk away from that conversation for a minute and then see. Has it got worse, Vanessa, since has all of this turmoil and this inner dialogue got worse since COVID? I assume it has.
I mean, I honestly don't know the answer to that. I'm guessing for some people it will, because if you think this is, you know, if you think about emotions, I know you're guys and all that, but, you know, you're still emotional beings, aren't you? So if you think about the fact that the media has been pumping out masses of fear since March 2020, and a lot of people are susceptible to that. And I certainly in the early days, I saw people immediately sending out on LinkedIn loads of free stuff that they were doing. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, you know, this is ridiculous. But even now, I think there's still a lot of fear around and uncertainty. So that can drive people to then say, well, in order for me to get business, I must keeping my prices down. So if somebody's very emotional, then yes, I'm sure it's still impacting them. And the other thing is, of course, where people are working remotely, they may not have the same level of support as they had if they were working in an office where they had people around that they could talk to. So maybe that could impact. But I think it's going to be different for every individual. You know, I don't want to say everybody's struggling more because of this, but no. I guess there has been an impact.
Well, like Rich says, you know, the pandemic gave rise to an SLT holiday, and then some firms took a commercial decision to restrict and up their prices. So I think you're right. It's about how you respond to those circumstances. The question that's come in the comments, David, is how much do we feel imposter syndrome affects individuals, especially folks from ethnic background that are often pitching to a white majority audience? I don't know if you can answer the second half of that question, but certainly that first half of that. You know, how much do we think that imposter syndrome affects?
Definitely. Imposter syndrome, you know, I suffered from it as well. You know, it's so common. It is such a common thing. Whoever that was, I just want you to know that you're not alone. And what I also want to say, and obviously I can't see you because I'm wanting to send this person lots of love, is that if you've got imposter syndrome, you ain't going to have imposter syndrome if you're rubbish. That's not possible. No. You know, imposter syndrome is because you are good at what you do, and that doubting voice says something to you. I'm trying to help you here. Now you see that automatic wanted to help the person is coming out. So, you know, just because you can charge what you're worth, by the way, doesn't mean to say you become a horrible person, because I'm still a lovely person. It's just that I understand how to balance the two things. So imposter syndrome is rife. Lots and lots of people suffer from it. If you're rubbish, you wouldn't have it. And if you're not doing very well in life, you wouldn't have it either. So you have to understand that. With regard to the other aspect, obviously I am white, but I am female and I am a certain age. And whilst I can't say I'm a certain race or whatever, I think women from my generation, we also struggled, because I can tell you, I remember my father saying to me, I'm one of 3 girls. You must understand it's a man's world. Now, he wasn't telling me that to make my life difficult. He was telling me that because that was, you know, the reality at the time, because he wanted us to be strong and be able to do what we wanted to do. So I think you have to, you know, if you feel that people are judging you because you're not white and male, pale and stale, by the way, that's another one to think. You know, don't be male, pale and stale. If you're from a different background, I would just encourage you, because there's so many great people from different backgrounds out there doing really well. And it's about self-talk. Don't listen to what other people are saying. Say nice things to yourself. because you don't deserve for ignorant people. I'm getting a bit political, but I'm not really a political person.
Not really, not really.
I do have quite strong views on anybody being treated badly because of race, colour, creed, class, age, disability, or anything else. And as I say, I don't like any ism, but I also don't really like labels. The thing is, you have to understand that you are a powerful being, regardless of what your labels are. And you need to be telling yourself that. I hope that helps you, whoever you might be. Feel free to connect up with me on LinkedIn if you like what I said.
I'd also say don't copy what other people are doing. Just because you see somebody else, you know, there's a lot of great LinkedIn lawyers out there at the moment. Don't copy what they're doing, because you don't know the effort or the hard work that they've put in behind the scenes to get to that level. I've seen so many people try and copy someone, and then they get found out eventually.
Be yourself. Be yourself. Be
Yeah,
yourself.
exactly. Yeah, as corny as it sounds, be yourself, but just find what works for you and run with that. Everybody has their own secret talent, secret superpower, Iron Man, shall we say. It's working with that and going forward with it. But just because you see somebody posting something on social media that they're doing amazing, doing all of this, don't suddenly go, oh, wish I was doing that. Oh, I'll just copy him or her. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Is that the Michael Jordan quote? Is it Jordan that says that? So everybody, no, it's not. Who's Beyonce married to?
Jay-Z.
Oh, Jay-Z.
It's Jay-Z said everybody wants the planes, everybody wants this, but they don't want all the other stuff I've had to do to kind of get that as well. I think it's such a valid.
Yeah, Kobe Bryant said it best. He said, people go out there and train in the NBA 3 hours before a match. He said, I make sure I'm out there training 6 hours before a match. And he said, I'm the first one training. I'm the last one to leave. He said, that's how I got to be in the NBA. And obviously Kobe Bryant, bless him, incredible, talented athlete, but everybody could not live up to Kobe Bryant's talent. And he said, how'd you do it? And he said, I'm the first one there. I'm the last one to leave, but I put in twice as much effort as everybody else.
The other thing I would add to that question that person asked was that there are some, I was going to say a rude word then, but I'm probably not allowed to. I can't think of another word that says arseholes. I mean, does anybody have a better word than arseholes?
Yeah,
No, we're allowed to say that.
On this show.
Well, only worse ones. I think,
Are we allowed to say that? Well, you know, I'm very human.
We've had worse. Don't worry.
I'm very human, so there are arseholes out there, and I work on the basis that why would you want to work with people like that? You know, there is enough decent people in the world, regardless of anything label that you might have, that don't think like that, don't work with people like that, but also correct your own thinking. So that's what I would add. I only work with nice people. You know, that is a decision I made. That's more important to me than anything else.
Vanessa, can I ask? Sorry, you go.
Oh, very quickly on that point though, I don't think it's like a 6, isn't it, and a 9 the other side as well. So somebody who occurs to you as a bit of a, you know, somebody that unpleasant that you don't want to deal with, actually to someone else they might be all right. You know what I mean? And that's, so I think it's even one step back from there, which is like they're not actually that thing. They just occur to you that way, and that's okay. Like, you know, if you're not going to get on with working with someone, don't work with them. But you know, then if I can think of all these guys on the call here and others that I would refer work to quite happily. The chemistry works perfectly well with Rich to work with someone. It wouldn't with me. There's no judgment on there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
no, that's true.
Right, isn't it?
That's true.
Go on, Kat. You were going to say something much more interesting than I was, I'm sure.
I was going to ask, do you advise people to kind of gain their true worth and so therefore stick to it, so X amount per hour or per project, or can there be indicators that they can adapt their worth based on the pain points that their client has or the person they're pitching to, so that they can get an even higher rate, you know, dependent on the pitch?
That's entirely up to the individual. I think that what I do is help people actually take control of themselves so that they can make a rational decision rather than the knee-jerk emotional decision that goes on when people are undercharging or discounting. So it's entirely up to each business how they decide to operate. As long as they're happy with what they're doing, they might decide that there's somebody that doesn't have a lot of money and they want to work with that person for whatever reason, and they're willing to charge less, but it's a conscious, rational decision rather than a knee-jerk one. Whereas there might be somebody else who they think actually the value for this project is such that I'm going to charge them more. And if they're confident doing that and the client is happy paying, then they go ahead and do that. So you don't have to be rigid. just because you're charging what I consider to be your true worth, because actually it's not exactly, it's not an exact science anyway, is it? Charging your true worth. What it's about is eliminating the behaviors that stop you charging properly and have you running around like that headless chicken, doing too much for too little and actually abusing yourself.
Yeah. Do you have any other common themes about people discounting actually after they've actually sold the price? So, for example, a lawyer who discounts by 30% after they've actually done the work, or is it?
Oh yeah, I mean, yes, because if they, yes, there's all sorts of ways, isn't there, that that's going on. So, say for example, they've quoted a fixed fee, and then the scope has changed of the fixed fee, and they've done a lot more work, but they haven't had a conversation with the client about it. And that's so common. I'm sure you've all heard this stuff before. Then they get to the end of the project, they can see that they've done extra work, but there's absolutely no way they're going to have a conversation with the client. So they just slash it. You know, this is going on in firms must be losing millions every year, or hundreds of thousands, depending on the size of the firm, every year from that kind of behavior. And it can all be avoided, but I'm not going to share everything today. So.
I've got a quick question for you, Vanessa. I see a number of law firms offer kind of like a free initial 30-minute consultation. And a lot of these law firms I speak to say, look, we offer these free 30-minute calls, but it never really goes anywhere afterwards. Should they continue to offer these? Because I know they're lost leaders. I know they're lead magnets and things like that. But at the same time, you're offering something, you kind of touched on it, you know, a lot of people offering free things. Should they continue to offer free things, or does that kind of go against your self-worth?
No, I mean, I think it depends how people manage it. I think it's the management of it that clearly is not working, because obviously we all have meetings, don't we, with prospects. We don't say, oh, I'm going to charge you for the meeting. We all do it. I think the challenge is how that. What?
I did.
Sorry, Simon's got his hand up going, he does. He charges them tea and biscuits, I bet.
Oh, you charge, do you? Well, I don't charge people for having a meeting, because you know it's getting prospects in. You have to talk to people to establish whether they're whether they are genuine prospects or not.
Yeah.
I think it's the management of those half-hour calls, because often they go into a lot more than half an hour and they run away with them. Yeah.
When I do mine, if I'm speaking with a new I mean, majority of my work is referral based anyway, but if I'm speaking to a brand new client, I am going to be shortly, I stipulate we've got 30 minutes, we'll go through, you know, so on and so on. Right at the end of the call, I kind of give them the option, okay, guys, this is what we can do moving forward, or alternatively, we'll just leave it here. But I explain the pricing right at the very end with them. More often than not, they go, yeah, let's crack on, let's get it all booked in, and then the invoice goes off accordingly. But I've had one or two, let's say in a previous role, where people would phone me up and I'd probably spend 2-3 hours with them over a period of time. In the end, I was just like, we should start charging for this. You know, they are getting a lot of free advice. And it was always the premise, oh, they'll come and work for us in the end. They'll come and work for us in the end. But some of them just didn't. So yeah, I was like, we've got 30 minutes. This is what we're going to talk and discuss, but these are the action points we want to discuss further. This is typically what my cost is going to be. But more often than not, they were very comfortable and go, yeah, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Well, do with some marketing reports that we do as well for the market, where we do, Rich, you know about the Digital 100 stuff, obviously, that we do. And then I'd issued a kind of synopsis of it to like all 100 firms a while back, and one of the early editions, maybe 2.5 years ago. And somebody who you would know immediately, who isn't too far between you and me, wrote to me and said, oh, I can get this from any digital agency. I said, oh, that's great news. I'm glad that you can. Do you want to send me a copy of that report then? Because he was like basically going, I should have this for free. And I said, oh, that's fine. You know, if you send me a copy of their report, then we'll just take a look. And of course, suddenly it's not available. And it's like, well, that's so are you going to send me a copy of the report? And I said, no, you can pay me for it if you want to have a copy of the report. I don't mind you having the synopsis for free, but there's a lot of that kind of chat as well. I tend not to get into the conversations too. I've done a bit of Vanessa's, I haven't done enough of Vanessa's course, and we are going to do it at some point, but I've done a bit of it, and I know that it's just you've got to manage those things proactively, I think, a bit better, and realize when you're kind of wasting your time as well. So we're a lot more in good nick than we were when I first met Vanessa maybe 12-18 months ago. Yeah, good.
You know, it's everybody has the chance. I talk about everybody is on what I call a continuum, and at one end you've got zero confidence. At the other end, you've got 100% confidence. Everybody's somewhere along the line. Doesn't matter who you are. So you could be at the 100% confidence end, but you're still on that line. And I think there's also sometimes people will be confident with some people and not with others. So they can do really well in one conversation with a client and then not so well with another one. And some people are just hopeless all the time. Not because they're bad at what they do, because usually they're really, really good at what they do, just because they're bad at the whole charging thing, because they've got that internal dialogue which doesn't support them and they're not in control. I see this all the time. People, no boundaries, no control over
This is where
process.
This is where law firms need to start establishing BDM roles, client onboarding teams within firms, because then you can take that whole pricing element, the whole confident aspect away. The BDM does the selling, and then it's just passed on to the lawyer to actually conduct and carry out the work. So BDMs are born to, they are salespeople. So if more law firms adopted a sales, BDM approach, Peter Jones, if you're watching, great, fantastic. He's a great example of a BDM within a law firm. But it takes that whole headache and confidence of pricing away, because the BDM then handles it.
So you're trying to take my business away, are you?
No, not at all. Not at all, Vanessa. Not at all, Vanessa. Sorry.
That BDM isn't in the actual pitch, are they? So I think that there is an element of the BDM.
Some of them are. Well, I think BDMs, some BDMs will sit in on the pitch meeting. It's just when it gets down to, if a client wants to talk, confidential aspect, BDM's not present. But I think the BDM up from the outset, doing the initial, tender phase pitch, they have the confidence to put the pitch across, and then it's handed off to the lawyer correctly to deliver the work. But I think that whole fear aspect, the confidence, that's where the BDM's role could sit in, and then it just alleviates the issue with the lawyer.
However, the BDM's not going to have time to sit in on every single piece of work.
No, not
every single lawyer.
But just the initial. No, but that's where you need more BDMs if you've got a bigger team. But yeah, they're not going to sit on every single meeting, but that's where the initial confidence and the pitch and the pricing, but that message then gets passed on to the BDM essentially. Why wouldn't it?
I think there's some challenges there. I still think with scoping work, that as much as the BDMs can listen really well and probe for scope better, I still think that lawyers have got something that BDMs struggle with a bit in comparison. In terms of experience, track record, and where that goes, I think it's a balancing act. I think Links have done it for years, haven't they? I mean, you wouldn't often meet with the lawyer first when you had a big piece of work. You'd meet the project manager, and Rich, it might be a BDM role, might be a project manager. If you're trying to spend £100,000 with them, they're going to take it really flipping seriously, and they want to structure that immediately from the outset. So I think you're right that there's something in there, but I think it's probably a marriage between the two sides as well. And then
absolutely, it's not one or the other. It's supporting the lawyer in their role to gain the work.
Vanessa, I'm slightly mindful of time, but you wondered if you could make really clear for everyone, the people who tend to watch this are either in kind of marketing and BD roles, or maybe they're in fee earning roles as well. And lots of them might well have had pricing training previously. What is how does what you do differ from that pricing training, if you don't mind me asking?
So rightly or wrongly, I see pricing training as much more about pricing models and maybe even strategies. But so I see it as very masculine. I don't think it necessarily addresses the whole emotional aspect, the thinking and behavioral aspect of charging. And that's where I come in. So whilst there is some process in the work I do, because there has to be, a large element is focusing on what is going on in your head that is stopping you behaving like a rational human being, and how can I help you see yourself and the situation from a different perspective. And I recently did some work for a global law firm, and they said to me, "Oh, we recognize that we can't do what you do and that you're the expert." And I thought, good. And I think I finally managed to get it so people understand the difference. So I think pricing training is about what are you charging, or what are your prices, and Vanessa Ugatti stuff is how are you applying those charges, and what is causing you to apply them incorrectly, and so land up having these horrible situations where you have to discount, or your recovery rate's rubbish, or you're working with a client that I call PITA, pain in the which Simon already knows that one. And it always gets a smile because everybody knows what you mean and everybody's had those. So yeah, does that answer your question clearly?
Yeah, it really does. I think it's valuable though for everyone to understand the difference between, one thing and another, because if they didn't know how to instruct you or why they should instruct you, I think that clarity to take it to, as you said, that person from the international firm just then that you mentioned, they clearly got it. But it's important then for them to explain to other colleagues, your department should do this, as well as our department having done this, because this is not what you've done before. This is something different.
No,
do people feel comfortable going through that as a collective kind of experience? So if you were to coach, me, David, Rich, and Kat, and we're kind of dealing with our various neuroses in front of each other, is that something that people are comfortable doing in terms of how to price? Is that how it works?
It seems to be, because I think one of my skills, if I don't like blowing my own trumpet, but I think one of my skills is actually creating a safe space to work. And because I share, as you know, very personally, as I've done today, very personally, I will share anything that I think is going to help people, because I don't feel embarrassed by any of it. I was like that, I'm not anymore. But what it means is that I understand deeply what it's like for other people, because having been so bad, and now I've got to a place of being quite good or pretty good at that, I've been through that process. And because I share it, one of the things I hear over and over again is people saying, oh, I didn't realize other people felt like that. And I was running a training session recently. It was an online thing. So I'd done a presentation like the one you attended. And then we did a follow-up session where they were sharing their new actions, their wins, challenges, and insights. And one lady said, I've got rid of my subconscious guilty feeling about charging. She's a family lawyer. And family lawyers are dealing with very emotional situations, people's terrible stressors. And she's a fairly young lady, this person. So that's going to impact positively on the career for the rest of her life. And so I don't find it, even I'm getting people to share stuff online, as well as it being in a room. And I've never had a problem with it. And I just think it's because I'm sharing myself. And what I'm doing is giving permission to unburden themselves, really. So as long as if you know how to create the right atmosphere in a room, or the right environment where people feel safe, no problem. And my workshops are always interactive. I know you haven't been in an in-person workshop, but the in-person workshops are very interactive. And once people start talking, they like to share their challenges, because that's what I get them to do, because it's my job. So no, there isn't a problem. And obviously, if people don't want to say something, they won't say it. There might be a limit as to what they will share.
Yeah. It sounds very therapeutic.
Sort of, but I'm not a therapist. But I suppose there is an element of that in it. But it's helping people see things from the perspective of, you do realise that what you're saying to yourself is nonsense, and lots of other people are saying it, but it's not true, and helping them overcome that.
Brilliant. I've really enjoyed that session as well. I don't know if David, I think we're probably going to end up wrapping up there because we're coming up towards 1 o'clock. And Vanessa, thank you so much. As always, inspiring stuff, and I really enjoyed that subject matter. How should people get in touch with you, Vanessa, if they want to?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. Vanessa Ugatti. There's only one in the world, so I'm easy to find. I've not found another one. So thetrueworthexpert.com, but just Google Vanessa Ugatti and you can find me, can't you? Brilliant. And you've got all the contact details on the bottom anyway. Happy to connect up with people on LinkedIn, no problem.
Contact details on there, and I'll add some to the stream as well. It looks like there has been a technical issue with LinkedIn today, so we may well post this as a pre-recorded show again, either this afternoon or early next week. So a bit of double time there, but hello to everyone who came over to us on YouTube, and thank you very much for joining us.
Oh. Who was that? Living rent-free in your head. Really enjoyed this, Vanessa. Is inspirational. Oh, thank you, whoever you are.
Well, one of our regulars. So always nice.
I think
to
that
see
quote is now
comments
going to
from-
live rent free in Vanessa's head.
Yeah, living
That's
rent
how I
free.
think that's
Who is this person?
No,
I'm
I'm a
going to find out
YouTube
on YouTube.
subscriber.
one
Wayne,
of our
apologies for the
faithful
swearing earlier.
followers.
Mr. McGann on there saying we can't swear. Apologies for earlier.
Oh,
Oh, was Wayne here? Was he?
He was indeed.
he
Oh,
was.
hi,
And
Wayne.
there
Right.
was another one of his comments that came in there. Anyway, we are done for time this week. Thank you to Vanessa for joining us. It's been absolutely fabulous. I think there's some real lessons learned there. And perhaps be good to have you back on again sometime in the future, and we'll dive in a little deeper into some of those areas, because I think there's a lot of good advice for people there, which would be great. And to the regular team here in the studio, Cass, Rich, Simon, thank you very much. Always good to have a full team, which doesn't always happen due to various commitments or on my part technical issues. Oh, Wayne's come back. So thank you very much. Do we have a show next week? I'm not too sure. We might have, but it
I think
looks
we
like
do. I think we
do.
I'll confirm when you updated when you reshared the video, which you're going to have to do on LinkedIn anyway. Then I'll drop some links in the comments. We can take it from there. But I'm pretty certain we've got a couple of people lined up. So yeah, I'll let you know.
That's
Christmas
great.
jumper Friday.
Oh yes, I've got to go out and get a Christmas jumper. That
No,
means.
you don't. It's going to come to you in the post.
Oh, no.
I've got his address as well.
I'm actually dreading what might happen
way.
with that. Right, well, join us next week and find out what the Christmas jumper situation is. But until then, it's been great having everyone here, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.